Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Peacemaker Season 2, Episode 3. Great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So, first and foremost, we had the return of Rick Flag Jr. in a flashback, but then also in another. It's a lot of interesting things. First and foremost, well, jumping ahead a little bit, we found out that the person Hardcore is dating or with in the alternate universe is Rick Flag Jr. And someone, I can't remember where I was listening to someone discuss the season 2 premiere. Someone had that line about her dating a jarhead. Someone was like, oh, what if that's Rick Flag Jr.? I'm sure other people probably came to that, maybe, but it's like, I distinctly remember hearing that in one place, and I'd never even, that jarhead line didn't even cross my mind. But either way, just starting with the opening of the episode, we find out Hardcore and Rick Flag Jr. were already a thing, interesting enough, and this is like right before he shipped out for the events of the Suicide Squad. This goes back to what James Gunn has said before. Basically, nothing's canon until it's said or brought up. So the question, you'd immediately go like, oh, so does that mean Hardcore and Rick Flag Jr. were a thing in the DCEU? It doesn't matter. In the DCU they were. You know, because once again, the storylines are supposed to be like, whatever happened in the DCEU happened in the DCU, but there are going to be some changes here and there, and what those changes are, what stayed exactly the same or relatively the same, will be mentioned. So regardless of that was a thing actually in the DCEU, it's irrelevant, it's a thing in the DCU, but it adds a really interesting complexity to Hardcore and Chris getting together. I mean, first and foremost, it also makes sense why they might get together in a different universe if there's something that was already there to begin with. Because we don't know how that storyline plays out in the other universe. But in the DCU, it's interesting because now you're like, oh, that probably also plays into why Hardcore was always kind of like a little resistant towards Peacemaker. Because she even says like, yo, you and me, we're friends. We're kind of the only friends we have, so let's not screw it up. But he's like, we kind of already did because we slept together. Because he's already still with Enchantress. And he's like, yeah, that could kind of come back to blow us up because she could like literally put a hole in the earth. But for him, it's like, yeah, it's worth it. Because I didn't remember how Suicide Squad ended, like the David Ayer Suicide Squad, because I've only seen it once, and that was many, many years ago. So, like, I know it came out in 2016, but I either saw it in 2016 or 2017, so I didn't, I think they stopped her, and she was okay, but that's kind of implying, like, her and Rick got back together at some point in time, because she doesn't come up at any point in time in the Suicide Squad. I mean, I haven't watched it all the way through in a long time. I've seen bits and pieces over the years, like, you know, rewatched bits and pieces here and there, so... But I don't think she was ever referenced, because the Suicide Squad was supposed to be like a soft reboot, so. They didn't pull too much from the canon of the first Suicide Squad movie, if I remember correctly. But like I said, my memory's trash. But like I said, it makes an interesting complication for why Hardcore might be so resistant to being with Peacemaker. It's like, it's not just her own stuff she's dealing with. She lost someone she was close with. She considered a friend. They hooked up. Who knows how deep their history ran either. It's like knowing like he was on that mission. Waller's also the one that kind of gave permission, you know, Peacemaker to, but like it's a lot of that just adds a complicated thing of like, and Peacemaker is none the wiser. No one knows it. I doubt even Waller knew. Well, Waller being Waller, you never know what she knows and what she doesn't know. And, you know, even if she knew, it wouldn't change anything because she doesn't give a shit. It's like she has her mission. She sticks to it. What you know, she's kind of got the Peacemaker perspective on I'll do whatever I got to do to protect America, you know? Present day, we have Chris waking up in that alternate universe because he got drunk as hell and he woke up in this world and his brother's like, yo, you okay? Me and dad were worried. You went disappearing on us. Like, it seems like he's kind of going down these rabbit holes before because they keep bringing up the pills because they're like, yo, like, is that all you were doing? He was like, yes. Like, I mean, granted, episode 1, obviously he was doing a lot more than just, drinking. This time around, he was just drinking. So, he wasn't really lying to his brother. But, yeah, he saw Hardcore's message of like, yo, let's meet up. And so he gets dressed up. He sees the pills in his dressing room, which is sad because that means like that Peacemaker was most likely still going through it. I mean, who knows where that Peacemaker was in his story, in relation to his family and stuff like that, the demons he was struggling with in this universe. But either way, he, is about to leave. He's like, yo, why are my clothes like the Kardashians? Which we now found out, well, at least in this universe, the Kardashians don't exist. It's like, who are the Kardashians? It's like, seriously? It's like, yeah, well, he's like, bro, what are you talking about? It's like, now I'm going to go. And before he could leave, he's like, all right, pop quiz. What are you talking about? Like, what is Harcourt's zip code and address? He's like, what are you talking about? Why would that address to Argus? He's like, correct. He's like, wait, that was correct? I was like, yeah, can I borrow your car? How's this a pop quiz? He's like, why don't you just ride the peace cycle? That's the correct answer. And just literally, Keith has the same response I have. What the fuck? And also, what the hell is up with that bike? It's got like missiles on the front of it. I was like, I like bikes aesthetically. I think they're cool, like in movies and video games and stuff. I would never ride one. He goes, rides around, and he's celebrated and loved. It's everything he's ever wanted. You're seen as a hero. I mean, that kid is breaking down, Peacemaker, I love you. He's like, love you too, kid. He's like, Peace, I love you. Someone's just like, Jesus, that's a bit much. Not a bit much when the lady's like, oh my God, Peacemaker, let me show you my tits. It's like, hell yeah. Hits the, revs up the bike, does a wheelie, takes off. He's like, yeah, feeling himself. And I do like the parallel between like Peacemaker's enjoying, this alternate reality, and then we're cutting back to real life with like his friends. It's kind of, I think it's meant to be, and this is going to be the setup for the season of the grass is always going to be greener. You're thinking everything about this life, this other dimension. You even say best dimension ever. Everything's great. In your world, the DCU, it's garbage. It sucks. Everything is shit. But I think it's building up and showing like, yeah, there is stuff worth it in this universe, because we don't really know like what his circle looks like in his universe, but he definitely has Harcourt in his life. But does he have an Adebayo, an Economos, a vigilante in his life? Doesn't seem like it from what we've seen, but who knows how his story played out quite differently in this universe. But yeah, like, Adebayo is asking Harcourt about stuff, but she's kind of being like, who cares? Vigilante is trying to say, like, right, he has dark secrets with Chris about, like, all right, I like spiders. Which I'm like, hey, more power to you. Like, I don't know where people fall. I know there's quite a few people who like spiders. I'm not a fan of spiders, But yeah, like, but it's like, oh, is that really your dark secret? And he's still doing the thing he's doing where he's just like, oh, I like these animals, and oh, let me tell you some facts about crows. Oh, crows can take a paper clip, pull it out, and like murder you with it. It's like they can. It's like, no, I didn't say they can. I said they could. It's like, oh, John might be in my bathtub choking on vomit. He's like, why didn't you tell me that sooner? Goes in there. He's like, dude, why are you sticking your fingers in my mouth? He's like, trying to find if there's any vomit or not. It's like, you got to give it up to Vigilante. He, like, might be a sociopath because they were like, because his dark secret was the whole thing. And it's like, wait, how many people have you killed? He's like, how many is a shit ton? He's like, wait, why are we changing the subject? But it's like, yeah, he can be soft and sweet about the weirdest things and then just a complete and utter sociopath. But I mean, I guess that all plays into him being the sociopath, that he can be sweet and caring about the most innocuous things and then just like be like giddy and crazy about killing people in the same breath. Honestly, like the whole him and Economos thing is really sweet because like Economos is like, wait, where's my pants? He's like, oh, I took them off. I washed them. I don't think he said he took them off, did he? That's why I was like, when Economos was like, what the fuck were you doing? I was like, he washed your pants, didn't he? But I didn't realize we didn't see it until the post credits. He literally took your pants off. Maybe you said it at the time and I just didn't catch it, but the post credits showed it. He literally took your pants off and washed them, which is, once again, weird, but also kind of sweet. It's just like, oh, like that's actually nice of you. You kind of didn't have to do that, but also, why did you do that? It's also kind of weird, like, hey, you see me passed out in the tub. Your first thought is, let me take your pants off and wash them. What the fuck? But either way. And Hardcore and Adebayo had that back and forth where she's like, bigging up her bestie, being like, yo, Chris is actually good. He's handsome. He's this and that. You yourself, you kind of fucked up. She's like, more so than Economos and Vigilante. All right, I'll give you that. But you are pretty fucked up. She's like, when I met you, I thought this and that about you. That, yeah, obviously you are cool, but it's like now gotten to really, really know you, you are pretty fucked up. And she does this thing of two things crashing and exploding. It's like, what is that? Something, you crashing and exploding because you're that fucked up. She's like, okay. But it's like, she's like, me and Chris isn't in love with me. It's like, cause she's kind of like, it will never happen. It's like, yeah, but does Chris know that? Like, you've pushed him away and you haven't really explained to him. We now have context of added reasons why you're pushing him away. You're going through what you're going through, but then on top of that, you probably have never been able to really take time to grieve like the person you cared about. Like I said, we don't know how deep her relationship and her dynamic with Rick ran, aside from just a hookup. But like the whole thing of we're friends and we're kind of the only friends, like losing that person and then like you come to care for the person who murdered that person, and it's just got to make you feel all kinds of like conflicted and weird. You're already feeling very lost in the world, and that probably doesn't help, so it's such a beautiful juxtaposition when you see like the hardcore we've come to know. Once again, DCEU versus DCU. We're not going to get caught up in the semantics of it because it's like DCU version of her very close to the DCEU version, but the one we've come to know is very like tough and just like bottles her emotions. Once again, as that therapist or whatever said in episode 1, suffers from toxic masculinity. But it's such an interesting thing when we see her in the other universe and she's so like bright and smiley and kind of got like this very bubbly personality. It's such a like twisted. You're just like, geez, it's such a 180 that it is kind of like jarring a little bit when you just see her giddy like that. But Chris showing up at Argus and that guy's like, oh, Peacemaker. Oh, Mr. Grant, like, how did the test come? He's like, positive. Really? It's like, yeah, I was really hoping it wasn't cancer. I'm like, who's Mr. Grant? That's not the neighbor dude from season 1. I don't know if that's what that's supposed to be, if that's who that's supposed to be or not. Maybe not. I'm like, who is that supposed to be? I'm wondering. Either way, Chris goes to meet her. And it's like, yeah, of course, who's the first person he runs into is Rick. And it's like, that's got to be weird. But you don't really have time to process that. You're just like, oh, Rick here. How you doing? He's like, no, what you doing here? I didn't know if it was something official. It's like, oh, personal. And we get to see like Joel Kinnaman play, because obviously in like Suicide Squad and even the Suicide Squad, he played a very like straight man thing. He had like funny lines and stuff too. Like he got to be a little more jokey with his portrayal. But this one, you get to see him be like the jealous type of like, oh, so you're hanging out together, and he's peeking over his cubicle looking at them, which is so interesting. Like they must not be serious or something for Harcourt to be like, I mean, it's understandable for him to feel a certain way when you're with your ex, but this must be such a new enough thing that like that Amelia's not thinking much of it. Like, oh, I'm hanging out with my ex. I'm like, I mean, I guess we also don't know how long her and Chris were together. Also, just kind of the familiarity where he calls her Harcourt and she's like, okay, Smith, we're doing that weird thing. We're just calling each other by our last name. He's like, yeah, it's just kind of a joke. She's like, weird Joe. So once again, just showing like the intimacy of like we know each other on a first name basis versus like our Harcourt always keeping him at a distance. Once again, now understandably so. But anyone from the outside perspective could be like, I can understand why he'd feel a certain way, but it feels like he's getting cucked in this situation, and it feels like that's what we're setting him up to be. Like, oh yeah, like this in this universe, Rick is going to be the cuck. It feels like they're setting that up to be that case, but we'll have to wait to see. But it's so interesting too because she seems to like. I like a lot of his like immaturity to some extent because he's like, oh, do you know what it means like when you're like what they call it when you're going down on or whatever? It's like, oh, an elevator ride. It's like, oh, is that what? Yeah, that's what the kids are calling it these days. It's like that's such a Peacemaker thing. Obviously, not. It's a crude joke, sure, but like not like as crass as he usually is. Ugh. I feel so weird using words like crude and crass, but it's not as full Peacemaker as usual, but that's also because he's trying to make a good impression. It's also that thing like when you're meeting someone for the first time, you're like, how far can I take some of the jokes we're having? Like, can I go like pretty morbid and dark? Okay, no, I need to test the waters to see how comfortable we are with each other, especially because I don't know where we currently stand. So the way she talks about it later on makes it sound like he cheated on her with other people. I mean, when we know Peacemaker isn't afraid of like throwing massive orgies when he's in his feelings, so that shouldn't be too surprising. But it kind of makes you go, who did he like screw around with you with? And like, are we gonna find out it's like other superheroes? Are we gonna find out like You know, in season 1, he's talking about the whole like, oh, well, I don't know if that's canonical anymore, but the whole, oh yeah, Wonder Woman IFing me across the room. And it's like, well, that was some BS, but like, I don't know, maybe in this universe, you and Wonder Woman did hook up. You know, type of thing of like, maybe there's like, let's not just keep it to the ladies. Like, there might have been some dude heroes that you hooked up with too. You know, some that might be gay, some that are straight. You know, so you know the door's wide open on that situation. So, but it is kind of sweet and nice seeing them. It's such a dynamic we never get to see Chris and Harcourt in, and to see them kind of having fun, just kind of day strolling, hanging out. But like the fact that she's so open to it must mean like things with Rick aren't that serious. If she's so willing to even be like, yo, like we could test run. I just don't want to get hurt again. Like, you hurt me. And he's like, I'm sorry. And he's like, I think it's interesting too that he's like, yo, like I have grown. I am changing. That this Peacemaker is a little more sensitive, you know? It's interesting too because even Harcourt is like, oh, you don't seem as arrogant. So, you know, but when he brought up like, oh, the trauma I'm dealing with, which I was like, she didn't correct him on it. So I think that's interesting. So I'm like, ooh, what did this? I mean, obviously this Chris of this universe went through something. If he was on pills, like that doesn't just like come out of nowhere. Like that stems from like that was him numbing himself from something. So for her not to be like, what trauma are you talking about? Like there's something there that like he's able to use his trauma, and she's just assuming whatever his trauma is that it's this universe Chris's trauma. So it's fascinating to know, like, once again, like what was this universe's Chris going through? Like what was he dealing with? But yeah, Harcourt seems like she's like, no, I'm willing and I'm okay with like, you know, let's give it a couple days to kind of try that out because I don't want to get hurt again. And he's like, sure, I'm willing to give that a shot. And then like people are running. I was like, what is happening? And that guy trips and explodes. I was like, that seems random as hell. I was like, oh my God, Jerry. And then we find out like immediately some superhero, you know, bad guys thing is happening, and it's time to get into action superhero style. It's the Sons of Liberty, and the moment I heard that name, I was like, wait, from Supergirl? And I looked it up to confirm it. Yes, like I'm curious to see if they do it because this was just the Coons. I'm curious, will Agent Liberty pop up at some point in time? But that was Sam Witwer's character in season 4 of Supergirl. They led a very like anti-alien. I don't know if that's how they. I mean, I didn't look too deeply into them comic wise, but at least in season 4 of Supergirl, they really led to the whole like anti-alien sentiment was like their main crux in the storyline that season. Season also, if I remember correctly, that was like John Cryer's like first appearance as Lex Luthor, because it was only in like 3 episodes if I remember correctly. But they also did the Red Daughter storyline, which is like a Supergirl equivalency to the Red Sun storyline. But yeah, I'm drawing a lot of parallels. I wonder, is that going to be like a major threat in this? See, like if that's the Sons of Liberty, like not unless that's just all of them, that might just be a one and done group. But I'm like, considering Agent Liberty and stuff like that, he could be a future threat. Would be interesting if that's something that like gets used in this season, or at least in this like a threat in this universe. You got to give it up to Peacemaker going in, you know, just like the fact is he felt the call of action. Like he didn't wait for anything. Like he's like, no, I am a hero. I feel like a hero because I'm already embraced one. So like without like, it wasn't even a thing of I need to do this because that's what's expected me of this world. He's like, I've already felt like a hero. I want to be a hero, but no one views me as one. And now that they do, it's like, no, I can do it. I can prove that I am worthy of being in this world as a hero, and goes full like diehard mode. You know, and they even say like, wait, is he not wearing his suit? Which I mean, I wonder, does his outfit come with more power? But I guess like honestly, because he said suit, and I'm like, well, I mean, only thing about him, because his outfit seems regular. Like unlike his dad and his brother, they have like full powered armor. When we saw him previously, he just was wearing like the traditional like Peacemaker costume in episode 1. So that's why I was like, of this season. So I'm like, his clothes never seem to have any special capabilities, but once again, maybe things are a little different in this universe. But I'd assume when they're saying like no suit, I'd assume they're mainly talking about he's going in there with no helmet. And like I said, very like Die Hard, very like actiony movie thing of like systematically taking everyone down. That first guy got it rough, axe to the head. He was like, wait, what? He said something like, wait, what'd you say, or what's going on? And then got by the rest of the axe. The one guy that got like the pencils jabbed in his ears and lifted up. That was brutal. Also, the guy that got killed by the freaking, it seemed like the office printer, obviously just brutally taking these guys out. And at first I was wondering if that was going to be an issue, but then like Keith comes in and rams into the helicopter, exploding. I'm like, okay, good. Because I was thinking for a second, like, because we don't know how you guys operate in this, so I'm like, maybe in this universe you kind of go the Batman route, but it's kind of funny that it seems like no matter what, at least of the universes we've seen, you pretty much go down the like, nah, I'm putting bad guys down. That's your cup of tea, through and through. Disarm those devices pretty easy, but it's just like, hey, I just unplugged it. Luckily, everything worked out. Those devices are still there, and those things are temperamental. Like even the slightest drop, it's like once again that, like they said, don't forget what just happened to Jerry. So, but Chris came through, saved the day. It's like, yeah, like he feels good, feels accomplished. He's embraced by Amelia. His brothers tell him like, yo, you got this, you did it. And later on when they're sitting down, he's like, yo, are you okay? He's like, yeah, I am. And it's just like, he's like, if there's anything going on, man, I'm your brother. Like nothing's ever going to change that. I love you, and I always will. I mean, you can tell me. He's just like, I really miss you. He's like, you don't got to miss me, man. I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere. And it's just for Chris this opportunity to get to know his brother in a way he didn't. All he has is the memories of his brother, but now he gets to see like, we have a relationship. We've grown older together. Like you've lived an actual life, and I don't have to necessarily fully carry the guilt of what I did. Here, I can just. Everything's better here. So he's even telling Harcourt, like, I might be ghosting you I might disappear for a bit because there's some stuff I need to finish up. I'm so curious to see what his idea is, because as we see at the end of the episode, he's coming back to the DCU. So the question is, what was he planning on doing? Like, I guess, like, completely cutting ties with that world. What was he going to do? Because it seems like he's probably going to say goodbye to that world to come back here, or is he trying to, like, settle things over there to be like, hey, guys, like I might disappear every once in a while, don't worry about it. I'm so curious to know what he plans on doing and what conversation he's going to have with his crew, so that like they don't miss him, because he's like, there's at least some people in my life that are going to miss me, like Eagly, maybe I can bring you over to this universe with me. Ads like, you stay here, Economos, like things between me and Harcourt aren't working, so I'd be so curious to know what his thought process was, like how he was going to clear things up, and like it felt like he was just going to abandon his life in the DCU and just come over here. I'm just so curious how he would have handled it. But all the while that's happening, we had the whole thing with Flurry being like, yo, we were attacked by like a superpowered duck or whatever. And Bordeaux's like, why didn't you tell us, Chris? He's like, what are you talking about? It's not a duck, it's an eagle. Like, and it's a regular eagle at that. Like, and later on being like, did you not read his dossier? Which is so funny because he called them out for that in season 1, being like, you guys didn't read my dossier? Like, at my psychic eagle. And then even they making fun of it being like Eagly, which I think it's just such this beautiful parallel of like, yo, you guys don't know about Eagly? Come on. That's his eagle psychic, because even they're making fun of the name Eagly, which John did in season 1. So I'm like, it is beautiful just to see like how tight-knit they've become, where it's just like, come on, like, Eagly's dope. He's cool, like. But then, like, I love, like, the over-dramatic thing of, like, if this was, like, a, serious dramatic, like, show, like, he's just like, no, you were messing with, you called it, he was like, I didn't say a duck, I told you expressly it was an eagle. He's like, nah, this man was screwing with me, using my bird blindness and get my disability against me. Was it funny? Yes, very. But it almost got titties killed. It's... that fucking line broke me for whatever reason. Just, like, that phrase... You almost got titties killed. I don't know why that puts a smile on my face. But like I said, I think it's just like because it's meant to be this like over exaggerate, because like that'd be like a dramatic moment of like, you almost got my partner killed because of your like giving me misinformation and just like the circumstances. So now the plan is to kill Eagly, which I love that like Argus like rolls deep to the house. Cause I get it, you don't know what Chris has got up it, because he's probably not going to come quietly. So it's mainly about him, because they mainly brought in Red Saint. What was it again? Red Saint something. Red Saint Wild, played by Michael Rooker, of course, which is so interesting. So that must mean like he didn't play Javelin in the Suicide Squad. It was someone else that played Javelin. It might be that type of thing. I I mean, it wasn't the biggest part of the Suicide Squad anyway, so it's irrelevant, but you get the whole thing, right? So he's specifically brought in to kill Eagly, but like John is not okay with that. And I love that like Red's Saint Wild is like, yeah, we're gonna kill Eagly and every other eagle in the place. And then Bardo's like, no, just Eagly. He's like, oh, come on, you know? But it is kind of, he's like, should we really be hunting eagles? Isn't that kind of effed up? It's like what country allows us to do that? And it's like, well, for now, we're allowed to do that. Because it seems like Bardo even specifically says, because of that dimensional thing, because of the whole Luthor thing and pocket dimension thing in Superman, that's been a top priority thing. Well, that's where it's really interesting because was it in episode 1? Rick Flag Sr. said this is a priority 1. She's like, priority 1? And he's like, yes. At the time, I thought it was just like the Chris thing in general, which even she was shocked by that. So I don't know if she's kind of equating that by being like, I don't know how to interpret that. Whether it's like a thing of, since that situation, it has always been a priority 1, but now Chris has kind of become that priority 1. So it's like, you're being like, well, it's related to what was already our priority number 1, to be on the lookout for dangerous situations like this. Or whether she's just kind of lying because she's like, well, we need an excuse that's on the more up and up and not just Rick Flag Sr.'s like personal vendetta against Chris. I'm so curious to understand that a little bit more of like, there is a difference between that. Like, yes, like it's on paper, it doesn't mean anything, but just like personally, like on just like motivation wise, I'm so curious of like, was that always a priority 1? And it just happens to be like Chris has kind of become the new priority 1, but we're still using like the dimensional energy thing as like as our in, or is that Bardo trying to make it more related, even though, and she just lied to Economos so he doesn't know, like, or just trying, like I said, make it more official and not just like very vendetta driven. I don't know. But like I said, they roll deep at Chris's place because it's like, right, try and take him in, but if we can't, oh well. Because it's like, if we bring him in, he's literally not going to see the outside of a prison. He's going in for a long time. So they roll up at the house. Everyone's locked and loaded and ready. Oh, also we have Economos isn't going to be joined up with Red Saint Wild. He's going to be joined up with Judo Master, which even I'm like, yo, why the fuck is he here? Yo, he was working with the Butterfly, but then I had to go, well, fuck, it's Argus. I was like, yeah, who am I kidding? It might not be Amanda Waller at the top of the food chain anymore, but it's still Argus. And, you know, Task Force X was a thing, and Task Force M is a thing. So it's like, right, you'll use whatever assets you can. You'll turn bad guys into good guys. So I'm like, or at least useful tools. So it's like, him being a part of the squad shouldn't be. So it's so fascinating, too, considering, like, everything that went down between John and Judo Master in season 1. I mean, really, to be fair, the Peacemaker team and Judo Master in general, but still, it's going to be interesting to see how that dynamic plays out. Because you thought it was just going to be John and Flurry, but now it's like, oh, you throw in Red Saint Wild, which I should also note, apparently it's a character from the comics. It doesn't have its own full wiki page, but like apparently he's a deep rostered character. Obviously, because like if there's a character here, like unless it's like more often than not, it's going to be a character from the comics. It's going to be a very, very obscure one. I literally see the word obscured used when referencing this character. But yeah, like it's going to be this interesting thing considering like everything's closing in at the end where Argus rolls up just as Chris is coming back to this universe. So how this all plays out, it's going to be interesting to see what the next episode has in store for us. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.